So today, tonight, this morning, wherever and whatever time it is for you, we are going to be talking about hopelessness and helplessness in parenting from an article that we'll have on the show notes. It says, I think rather interestingly, and this is a quote from the article, "You're standing in a spot looking toward the future, and everything you see is bleak. The only word that you can describe how you see yourself as a parent is failure. It's a pretty awful feeling. You wake up in the morning, and as soon as your daughter sees you, you get some sort of negative, snarky comment, or you go into your son's room and see he still hasn't cleaned up the mess that's been there for weeks. Quote unquote months, exclamation point. And when you ask him about it, you get an F you, Mom, as a reply. There is a fear that seeps into everyday life that your children will never develop the skills to be productive members of society. The responsibility of it all can make you feel overwhelmed and defeated, and your day hasn't even really started yet. It can be even enough to make any parent wonder how you can ever thought having children was even a good idea." Craig, I think we feel somewhere like that along our ways in the world of parenting that leads dangerously and precipitously to hopelessness and helplessness.
Who wrote that article there, buddy?
I don't know, as a coach of some sort. So this is Through a Therapist's Eyes. I am Chris Gazdick. He is Craig Graves. I am a substance abuse and mental health therapist. He is an unbeatable mind life coach. Win in your mind. Spell it as it sounds.com. You can find him across the nation or the world. He can help you out with coaching services with an unbeatable mind program. I have a book coming out soon. You know what it's called, Mr. Graves? You remember?
Something about a therapist. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, that doesn't sound passionate and excited. Re-understanding emotions and becoming your best self. Excited about that. Comes out in paperback. March is out now in the Kindle form. This is Through a Therapist's Eyes, where we see the world through the lens of a therapist and a coach. Be aware it's not the delivery of therapy services in any way. Check out throughatherapist'seyes.com, where you get full show transcriptions, BetterHelp links with counseling, all kinds of books that we've talked about online. Pretty cool stuff going on with Through a Therapist's Eyes. This is the human emotional experience. Let's figure this thing out together, for sure, when it comes to parenting and everything, man.
Yeah, I was just asking who wrote the article because I'm telling you something right now. If my kid says F you to me, that'll be the first and last time that happens.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
You know, your response is interesting, and I'm glad you did that to fire us off that way, because I agree with you. I can't imagine one of my two kids saying it that way, in the way that you would think. But, dude, they've probably said it in certain other ways more than once in different veracity of their intent. And I see that happening in my office all the time. All the time.
Well, there's a difference in thinking it or whatever and actually saying it.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, so
I agree, but
it's possible that that's happened. But
I think that's unfortunately kind of normalized, and we'll talk about it today as we go through the stuff. But, you know, in checking out, I just popped a little Google search on that one and saw, you know, part of what that coach, it was a coach, that coaches parenting, honestly, is kind of the answer to your question.
yeah.
And they highlight that, you know, that's normalized for these kids nowadays. You got to realize, and I think she's right. You know, it's almost glorified beyond just normalized in a kid's world. The medias and the things they're exposed to, that's like the norm.
You mean cursing?
Oh yeah. Belittling, condescending, interacting with their parents in that way. Yeah.
That's not how my kids and I interact.
Not mine either.
Yeah.
Not mine either.
Yeah.
But it's out there, and I think that any parent that's listening out there might be like, "Oh yeah, they said that to me."
And I don't know who this person is, man, but my son's room is spick and span. I mean,
come on.
Jeez, golly.
Come
You
on.
could eat off the floor in there.
You got abnormal children then, brother. Very abnormal kids. And I say that with fondness, appreciation.
Well, I hope you could pick up on the sarcasm in my voice just now.
I actually
That's
didn't.
not the case. I will agree with the author on that one.
Nice. So what do we want to do with this, man? I think I wanted to kind of start out in the genesis of this show topic, Craig. And I know, because we're, you know, friends as much as we are, you know, professional colleagues here on Through a Therapist's Eyes. And so I know you know the situation in detail with that I'm currently stressed. I am stressed out, and I'm not going to, go into the details of things at all. And I would ask you not to as well, of course, because I know you know everything in deep detail. But, I wanted to practice what Mr. Dutta was talking about recently and kind of saying, you know what, it's okay to say when you're not okay. And I've had ups and downs lately, with parenting. My disposition is just being overwhelmed a little bit. Definitely feeling empowered as a parent, but I'm very much feeling, sadness, concern, and fear from the situation that I'm in with one of my children. And, the one of the things that I did you hear me sprinkle this in through our content today is what I have done recently, and, how we're getting through that. And we're going to get through it. It's going to be okay. But one of the things I did is I relied on close friends, our mastermind group. And I really appreciated, Craig, your take and your piping in during our conversation. Talking about feeling helpless and hopeless is actually the words that I used. But you captured much better what my disposition is emotionally with this, thinking that I'm actually feeling. Well, you remember what you said? You could go ahead and.
I said a lot. I'm not sure specifically what you're talking about there, but I did say a lot.
What I was feeling helpless about was the outcome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, go ahead and speak to that, maybe.
Well, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. There's a level of uncertainty, and you can manage the inputs or what goes on, but you can't manage the long-term outcome of what happens. I mean, what happens is going to happen. I think you can do the best you can, and you don't want to have any regrets, but you really can't manage the outcome, man.
Right. And that's scary because you want the best for your kids. You want them to not feel pain. You want them to not struggle. And I'll say that part of what we're dealing with in our circle right now is definitely related to the pandemic, I'm sure. But maybe people can extrapolate what's going on. It doesn't matter. What matters more is my disposition that I'm sharing. And I don't want them to have a harder time as they're having with some things. And it just sucks to kind of realize that can have a bad outcome. And I can't change it.
You can't control that. Yeah.
Can't control that part.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's almost like, lately, especially with the pandemic and kids being at home and no social interaction, you hear about kids committing suicide and they've been dealt a pretty hard hand, it seems, at least here lately.
Yeah, a lot of things going on with substance abuse, teenage anxiety, exploding, depression, loneliness. I mean, it is a wicked tough time. So that's kind of what's going on, and we'll kind of go into that. I wanted to start out with a current event. And by the way, I got to say, man, it's kind of going to be cool. I'm kind of looking forward to this particular episode. We've had a lot of guests lately, and I love doing that. But it's kind of fun just to sit here eye to eye with you and kick stuff around, man.
Let's get into it, dude.
Yeah, man. Good. I just want to comment, dude. I'm excited about that, man. We haven't done a lot of that lately. My eyes are put on the guest and stuff. It's cool to be back with you, man.
I hear you, buddy. Good to be here, too. What you got? You got a current event?
Yeah, man. What we are not going to talk about here in the context of helplessness and hopelessness with parenting is the issue that circles around this, though we kind of can't not. I know that sounds like a bit of a contradiction there, but dude, the headline here is in the local Gaston Gazette. And my wife had an excellent conversation with my son, honestly, about this particular topic, this event, because it's right in his face, man. It's right in his face. So as I go through this current event, I want you to imagine me as a parent, my wife as a parent to this kid that is our son, 16-year-old son. How do we deal with this issue, right? Like, talk about helplessness and overwhelmed, hopelessness feeling. Like, this is a big deal. So the topic is transgender. And that's the topic we're not really going to go into because I'm taking a different, perspective with this article as an example. But you could go that direction. The title is Transgender Forest View Student Bullied Before She Assaulted Classmate, Parents Say. Craig, did you happen to see this in the...
I haven't heard about this, no.
Yeah. Neil, you did. You said you came across it?
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay. I can't even put my microphone over to you when I pop you that way. Sorry, I got a new setup. You saw it. Neil says he saw it. So what happened, Neil, or Craig, since you haven't seen this, is it blew up on the news that there was this fight. It was a high school fight, and it was a big deal. And I was wondering, like, what's the deal? My kids were talking about it, and my wife and kid were talking about it. And so this article comes up and gives the dynamics of what it was. It wasn't just a high school fight. It was a brutal picture where a female student took this, it was a smaller male student, and like beat down on him, and like head being shoved into the ground. You know, at one point I thought this was like a riot that blew out of school, the way people were talking about it. But now this article describes to me what more was happening. And here's what happened, Craig. This is evidently a transgendered student that came out or transed or whatever at the age of 13. That's the stuff I don't want to get into because we can go in a bunny hole with there. But she came out when she was in middle school, and it's been going on and
so is this
on and
biologically?
on. Yes.
What is this person?
A female now, I think. So
No.
Well,
biologically, what is the person?
I have no idea how to answer that. That's the bunny hole. Probably. What do you mean?
I mean, biologically, is this person XY or X, whatever the chromosome deal is? What is the biology of this person?
I have no idea. It's a she. It's a female. But
okay, good. Thank you.
Well, that's what trans would be, I guess. But I'm assuming, and I don't want to misstate, if they did a transition at 13 to now, the article points out that it is a she. That's the
got it.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Now I'm with you.
Right. So it was a brutal attack, and it was a fight. But the backstory with that came out in a newspaper today, where since age 13, this young person, this girl, has been bullied over many years now, and is now older in high school. And they took recently a picture of this person going to the bathroom.
Okay.
Right?
Which is a crime.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And exploded this onto social media.
Okay, that's definitely a crime.
Right? Called her an F ... however, ending in T with a G in it. You can imagine what the word is. But even more unspeakable things, evidently, has been this person has been bashed with on social media. Thousands of posts ripping this person apart for the transgender questions and what bathroom they go into and whatever. You know? And so, yeah, she got pissed off and, threw down and is now, I think, expelled from the school. Now, my point, Craig, and what I'm getting at here is, how do you parent in the middle of all of that, with that being a real current event, with children age 15, 14, middle school, mine's 16 years old? Like, holy cow, in the middle of all that, what do you do? I mean, yeah, life lessons. This is a crime. Be careful on social media. Look, respect people. Leave them alone and respect them, whoever they are. I get it, but like, wow, there's a lot there, right? It's a lot there. And this is happening everywhere. This is unfortunately common reality with social media and the effects with kids.
Got it. So do you think this incident was different than any other fight?
I
mean, what puts the emphasis on this particular event versus
social media and the influence of how these kids were interacting and the dangerousness of taking such a, like you said, immediately. Well, it's a crime to take a picture of someone going to the bathroom.
It is a crime, and somebody should be held accountable for that. That's not okay.
Right.
Definitely not okay.
But that's what you and I didn't have that problem in our, gym locker rooms. We didn't have a phone. We can't Snapchat and pop this out there. Boom, literally in the drop of a dime.
Yeah.
And kids are doing impulsive things that are like huge and not thinking anything of it.
Yeah.
Because they've lived with it.
Yeah, and the reason I asked for the biology is because I didn't know if it was a biological female who had been assaulted by a biological male or vice versa, or if it was both the same biology, what was going on there with the whole fight. So I wasn't trying to be insensitive to the young lady. I was just trying to get an idea of
battle.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it's just, and we're interacting with my son, and it did trigger some good conversations. And
was he at school when this happened?
Well,
no, probably not, because they're doing
day
so he would have not been there that day.
Are you looking at the name, maybe figuring it out? Yeah, actually, the name is a B day. He's on A day. But I don't know. I just think that's a good segue into one of the questions I'll catch you cold with, Craig, and as we do from time to time with this. Let's do a segment here on how do parents find themselves feeling helpless and hopeless. I don't know if you cheated looking at the show notes. I have...
No, I haven't. I haven't actually looked at them. You just gave them to me earlier, and I haven't had a chance to go through yet. So no, I'm completely not.
Good. Don't read it. Let's get in the moment and be like, like you said, we all feel that way as parents. I mean, what do you think, riffing off using Dudda's words, riffing off of that, man. What makes people feel helpless and hopeless?
It's probably a normal thing. I think we all do to some level. My children are much better than I was when I was their age, as far as the things they do and don't do. And I still worry about them turning out to be okay, and what could happen to them. And I think that we obviously want the best, like you said earlier, for our kids. And we would love it if we could ensure that were the case. So I think that the hopelessness is just, we realize that those kind of things are out of our control. Excuse me, Chris. and it's a scary feeling, It's just when you see what goes on in the world around us.
Yeah. New and interesting times, and that's why I pulled that current event into this, because, God, what did you say? What kind of times? I said new and interesting.
I think I said something similar to that.
Yeah, okay. And I don't know. In some ways, I would say never experienced before in the human race.
Well, we've talked about social media on shows before,
sure,
and things like that, and there's definitely different things going on with sexuality that weren't around when we were in school. And
right.
There's just, I think it's definitely a harder time to grow up. There's a lot more going on with taking a picture. Everybody's walking around with a camera these days. You can take a picture, of anything. Yeah, I'm really disappointed to hear that.
It breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's not okay, man.
It breaks my heart. And I guess what I would say from that, in this moment, feeling the passion of that, Craig, like, we need to have compassion for our children. The love and logic has been mentioned, and I'm going to mention that every daggum time parenting comes up, because I think it's so dynamic, which, by the way, our mutual friend says that evidently the love and logic people went out of business or went out inactive.
Really?
I don't know if that's true, because I went to their website and they actually had a phone number, and I tried to call it. I thought, hey, maybe we'll get them on the show, and that would be fun. But question mark, are they still active? It looks like they are.
Yeah.
But I was told they're not.
I haven't heard that. That's news to me.
But here's a takeaway, Neil. Here's a hit that I would say. The fact that when we talk about parenting, we're talking about the definition essentially is a relationship between you and your child, and you focus on that relationship to make it and to be well and healthy. Like, that's what I was thinking about in context of this show, and man, having compassion for your children that are dealing with all of these things, all of the things that we can maybe reflect back on and re-ingrain ourselves with, in addition to all these new things. Like, they are juggling a lot of stuff in their little heads.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I do have compassion for my children. My son was involved in a stupid social media thing when he was a freshman in high school, and then my daughter, who's 12 now, was very social, and not being in school, I have compassion for her, because and she still has friend interactions, but not like she did. And a lot of her friends that she was in school with are not there, because if you're listening abroad, we're in our school system here. Our A through M goes to school Monday, Tuesday. Everybody's remote on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The rest of the alphabet goes. So a lot of her friends are in the downside of the alphabet, so she's not with them at school. And
that's not crossed our nation. That's just in our zone.
That's just in our zone, yeah.
But there's all kinds of
things. I have compassion for her. I feel bad for her, man, and I try to spend time with her and get engaged when she's with me, so I can hopefully help her
cope.
Cope. I mean, and I don't think she's suffering anxiety or depression or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but you can just tell that she's that she needs to have some friend time.
Yeah. There's not a lot of friend time.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can take yourself back, Craig, I've thought about this just with, people that I'm working with, kids in my office, that have literal panic attacks and stuff. I don't know how many people when we were going to school had this, but do you remember what it's really like to be in high school? You are in a crowd in the hallway, running from one spot of the building to a whole other spot of the building with an incredible amount of people all around you. In my high school, there were 200 people in my class. That's a trippy kind of situation that I physically have hardly been in the last 40 years. however long it's been, you know? And you forget how imposing that is. It's a small space with a lot of people, body odor probably there as well. It's intimidating, man. You know
I don't
what
remember any BO, but you're right. It was.
God,
I mean, you're in a crowd.
To go to the gym, man.
Well, I guess the gym was different.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of people in a small space. That's just normal stuff and pressure that they're dealing with. Plus the learning and the deadlines and constant homework assignments and constantly learning new stuff. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
So what was your answer? How do people get to feeling helpless and hopeless?
I think it's just a natural thing, man, because you want like you said, you want the best for them, and it's a bbig world out there, and there's lots of crazy stuff going on, and you hear about crazy stuff, and now we have children who are driving cars without us, and it's just I think that probably everybody has some feeling of. Anybody who cares about their kids have some level of hopelessness and worry about their well-being, man.
Yeah. So we can go down through these as we need to.
I have a 26-year-old son who moved to Dallas, Texas, and being so plugged in as we are these days, if I send him a message or give him a call or send him a text and he doesn't answer, I start to get a little concerned, because he's 26 years old. He's a grown man. So I mean, I think it's probably just a natural thing for us to be concerned about the well-being of our children.
Crazy, man. I forgot that he's in Texas. You're reminding me of that. I'm like, holy cow.
Yeah.
The world, right? Like,
yeah.
So transient, so movement.
And I've said this a bunch of times on the show before, we want them to have it easy and be comfortable, but, we got to let them go through things too, because that's where they build character and resilience and things like that. And I think that's kind of maybe what Love and Logic allows to happen.
Definitely.
But I still think, there's obviously some things that I don't agree with Love and Logic, too. And I can explain the dangers of drugs and alcohol to my kid. Still don't want him using them.
Yeah. That's actually, you made that comment and we were kicking that around, you and I, and that's why I had the thought, let me call this number. Let me see who I can raise up. Let me get them on here and let them talk to Craig because,
yeah, that'd be fun.
They would have answers for that.
That'd be fun if you could get somebody on from Love and Logic.
It really would. I kind of intend to be honest with
you.
And
if you're just picking up the show, Love and Logic is basically a concept of you tell your child the ramifications or the consequences of their of what could happen if they make this decision. And then as long as that decision doesn't affect anybody else, then you give them the flexibility to make that decision.
Which it usually does affect other people.
Right.
Then they have to fix the problem.
Yeah.
And then if they don't fix the problem, you come back around and create high structure, low power struggle, and you fix the problem.
Right.
The basics of it is thank you for launching into that. If you're not getting good grades and you're not having homework time and you don't fix the problem, we come around and we kind of take the PlayStation away. We, turn the breakers off in the house because you're home all day and you're not really using the electronics anymore. Turn the breakers off. That's right. I went nuclear. I went crazy. You can get all kinds of creative solutions, but that's where parents are challenged to figure out, okay, well, what am I going to do? Which, by the way, that feels helpless. That feels hopeless. When you do not know how to react, when you do not know what to do, when you do not know an answer, then you feel hopeless.
Right.
Yeah?
Yep.
Leads you right into that topic of... I'm always using Craig and Neil, what's in my brain at a time. And Craig, what just happened is our mics froze. And then the issue came up with kids and social media. And how long did we... I intended to have like a 2-minute break, right? What did we just do?
Yeah, we probably took 10 or 15 minutes just hashed over some of the things we'd already talked about on this particular show.
I think it was 15, 20 minutes, honestly. If we were to have timed it, which I didn't. I'm starting my timer back up now. My point is what we just the three of us experienced, with that break and our conversation is stuff that's in the world that you could just start talking about and you feel the energy and you can call that energy anxiety. You can call that energy with cancel culture nowadays and social media and this fear-based feeling and this legitimate concern or this created fear. It's our conversation was interesting and I enjoyed it, but it makes sense to me. And you're looking at how do you parent kids in the middle of all this? It's overwhelming, man. Right?
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. It really, really is.
Yeah, I just, so that's the way I figured we'd start our show back, from the technical difficulties we had there, So listen, here's my list, real quick. We have, I usually over prep for the show and thoughts and stuff, so I'm gonna fire through this, and then we want to do a segment on how to feel empowered and whatever. But hey, we're still on, how do you get into feeling helpless and hopeless? And the reason why I want to have this list and really focused on it as long as we did, because you got to know what you're battling. Right? If you don't really explore within yourself why you feel hopeless and why you feel helpless as a parent, and I predict we'll watch it, maybe you kind of make a memory check there. This will be one of our more listened shows. I think I've looked back and shows where people feel shame or people feel guilt or people feel those things. Those are our more listened shows with those titles. I think that's a true statement. Hopelessness and helplessness in parenting is a very common feeling that I think people are going to tune into this. Well, if you don't know why you feel that way, you're in trouble. What do you do about it?
So you're going to give us an answer?
Right. Here's a list I came up with brainstorming: lack of knowledge, keeping up with the times. What are these apps? What is in this pandemic? What is rapidly changing policies? Following kids in school and what's happening, and keeping up, man. A lack of knowledge. Right. B, bombardment. Brain overload. Do this, do that, do this and that. Buy these things, buy those things. Get them involved in this, get them involved in that. Do this and that. Goodness, what happened, in my brain to the good old days of small town America, right? C, fear. Fear will kill you. Debilitate any actions and visualize the negative, right? Faulty comparative analysis. Stay off Facebook, we've talked about. You cannot compare your kids to other kids in that way. Having our own issues. That's something actually my wife brought up I thought was awesome. When you got anxiety, when you got depression, when you have marital distress, when you're worried about your job, it's crazy. You have your own issues that are blocking you from feeling empowered, in dealing with kids. So you got to deal with your issues. First time experiences. When you're a parent, generally, what percentage of your experiences as a parent would be the first time you experienced this in your life?
Well, you did read the parenting book, right?
No.
You didn't read that one?
I missed it. I got to make it. Because I feel your sarcasm. They say they don't come with a book, man. Financial strain, we added. Health issues of the child or parent. And we're not even talking about special needs kids. Kids that have special needs, have a lot of just that, special needs, right? So my wife said, quote, we could probably go to Z, Craig. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. And I think that's where we kind of ended. I think there's a lot there that makes us feel helpless and hopeless. What do you think about that list?
I think it's a good list. I think you probably could continue on. I think it's a good list, man. I don't know what else to say about that, but
here's a life tip.
I think all those are very valid points.
Here's a life tip then. Follow the order of priority that we've discussed, and we've talked about this on the show. If God is in your life, then God's at the top of the freaking list, right? God's first. That's the highest priority. If God and religion aren't in your life, fine. Self is first, top of the list. You take care of yourself. God, self, spouse, then kids, then family. Sorry, Craig, you're pretty dang far down on my list. Did I just say that out loud? Sorry.
You did. We have to mark this show explicit.
Oh, gosh. Right? You're that far down on my list, bro. Sorry.
Hey, that's perfectly okay with me.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? You have to have yourself taken care of at the top of that list.
So we may have talked about this before on other shows because I know we've gone over this list, but how do you do that, dude? You see something going on with your kid, then, and maybe it's the same with anything else, but if your kid's in a pinch, they tend to move up on that list, right?
Yeah.
Things are going great. You're happy with your wife and everything's bliss. It's easy to maintain that list. But when your kid brings home all F's or does something stupid on social media and is going to get in trouble, or she's not having social time with her friends because there's a virus going on that she's more likely to die of the flu from, then what do you do?
Just throw that in there, right?
It's a little jab.
Definitely a poke.
But what do you do when you're, when your kid's in crisis, man?
I think it's a good question. And Craig, I think we've talked about it in our mastermind group. We talk about things about life in there. Remember when we talked about that there? It's been a little while, but it popped in my head because it was Total Mental Health Day.
Yeah, to refresh my memory a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about it in our group where it's kind of like, there's a movement of those orders of priority, when something is supposed to be low in the bottom of the list, let's just say work, but work is blowing up and you have to, the company's going under and, work and your resume and all of that it's got to jump up into priority. So, obviously they move around. I mean, if your mother comes down with a cancer diagnosis, well, she's extended family. She's, below God. She's below self. She's below your spouse. She's below your friends. But your mother is important. So that might move up. What do you need, Mom? What do we all need to rally around? You're important to us too. So, when something's in crisis or when something's going on, it's obviously going. You're not going to be a parent and not self-sacrifice.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
You're going to self-sacrifice. You fall on the sword even sometimes.
Got it.
So it moves around, but that can be confusing in how to manage that.
So, but normally the order of priority should be what you said.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Fair enough.
I missed one. The number one thing on my list of what leads to people to feeling helpless and hopeless: judgment from others. And maybe where are we at on time here? Maybe we focus on this a little bit as an example of how to deal with why you feel hopeless and helpless. We've got a good list here. Maybe let's stay here for a second and deal with, I would ask you, Craig, as I read this one and explain it for a minute, what do you do about it? We could do a show probably on each one of these. Well, we have for some of them.
So you're talking about what do you do about judgment?
Yeah.
Itself?
Yeah. So one of the things that leads to helplessness and hopelessness, what says you, Craig? How do we deal with this? I believe it's the biggest, probably one of the biggest ones. We're terrible as a society to parents, I believe. We judge parents all the time. We've discussed this before, but man, I see this as attacks from society as a terrible thing that creates helplessness and hopelessness on parents, and they hurt even worse when they come inside of your family, or maybe even so much so inside your family that this judgment of parents comes from your spouse, right?
Yeah, I can definitely see that one. But who else is bold enough to say, "Hey, you're not good as a parent," I mean, your spouse may say that, or at least it could be tactfully or maybe not, but they might say, "Hey, you need to do such and such with this kid," But I'm not sure that I'm going to say, "Hey, Chris, I think you're screwing it up with your boy there. You need to get your stuff together."
Then evidently you haven't been on social media.
I think that's crossing the line. Well, maybe I haven't.
I think you haven't.
At least not. I have been, but I haven't seen anything like that.
Wow, I'm kind of surprised at that. And I'll tell you.
Give me an example.
I'll tell you why.
Of a post you've seen.
Have you seen this, Neil? I'll switch it over. Have you seen this and whatnot? Insofar as society and social media and how people judge from that perspective.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with my wife's account on Facebook, you see some of the comments of her friends or from their friends where someone will say something about that happened or the way they thought, and you get those handful of people that they want to state their opinion and you did it wrong, you're doing it wrong, and
they crush you.
It's horrible. I mean, some of those people they are downright mean
in their feedback about you and your parenting.
And sometimes it's just the someone would post about, "Hey, my kid did this and this happened to him." And then the mob comes out and they say, "You did it wrong." There's a lot of people, especially on Instagram, that they'll have moms that'll post their pictures and they'll do this with it. Well, there's always those people that say you're doing it wrong. Mom shaming, I think, is what a lot of people go.
Oh, we have a name for it now.
Yeah, I think mom shaming.
Thank God they don't consider dads parents, Craig, because we would be dad shamed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you see a lot of celebrities like Chrissy Teigen. She gets a lot of slack from people because she has a very "I don't care what you think" attitude. But when she does something, a lot of people come back and say, that's a horrible thing to do as a parent. She's like, "Get off my case. I'm the parent and I'm doing the best I can." And she comes back at them just as confident as it was before. But a lot of moms don't.
Can't.
It really kills them as a parent, as a woman, as a mother. There's a lot of issues that they have with this. Yeah, it's a thing. And it's better that Craig's not on social media that much because that is very wearing, very negative.
Yeah, I'm glad we just did that. We had to throw a microphone around the room to get to Neil because that's why I was kind of shocked when you say that. And honestly, Craig, I think that, good on you because you insulate yourself. You do not expose yourself to all this stuff as much.
I don't recall seeing any of those posts, but I guess if you put your kids out there in that way, then you're opening yourself up because people post all kinds of crazy stuff on Facebook. I mean, I don't post a lot of stuff about my kids on social media. You know, I might post if my daughter tests for a new belt in karate, and my son hit a home run in a baseball game in the fall, and it was awesome. Go check it out on my social profiles.
He showed it to me.
But
It
you know,
was
I post
good look.
I post things like that, but I'm not posting other things that would open myself up to criticism in that way.
And you know, here's a tip. I guess this is a created tip in the moment. And that's where my brain does. You know, if you've got questions about something you've done in parenting, or if you have doubts about something that you've done in parenting, or you're trying to figure out something that you're needing to do in parenting, do not do that on social media.
Yeah.
Do not. Now, that sounds kind of simple to you and I think, in the way that we function, because I think we function pretty similarly. But you know what? That might be a tip that people are just like, wow, holy cow. Don't do that on social media? You know what I mean? Craig or Neil, just nod to me. Do you think that would be a surprise to some people? Yeah, he's saying yes, audience. I mean, to me, that's basic. Don't do that on social media. But I think people literally do explore those things, ask those things, wonder about those things, expose those things on social media platforms. And that's not the way to use it. You don't put that on Discord or, Reddits, just so the audience knows that doesn't know those apps or whatever. I'm learning them apps are really like dialogue spaces, Oh, Reddit, read it. Oh, thank you. I'm being corrected by the producer. It's not Reddit. Read, y'all. Isn't that an app? Read, y'all.
It is Reddit. Yeah. Oh, okay.
I said read it.
Yeah, I was distracted. I was posting a question about my parenting skills on Facebook.
Oh, dude.
So I missed the
breaking the rule. Breaking the rule. All right. So obviously there are some obvious things we've already kind of hit, but let's expose in similar fashion. Kind of be quick here, and then we'll spend the rest of the segment time really on how do you feel empowered. Let's take
Chris,
a break.
Let's don't take a break yet.
Okay.
I was looking over your list here, and we talk a lot about managing the things that are in our control, and some of these I think we can. I mean, I think we can. We can, if we have lack of knowledge, we can correct that. If we got bombardment, there's ways we can deal with that. I have the big four of mental toughness, or the witness process. We can deal with our fears in the same way.
Yeah.
You say stay off Facebook there, faulty comparative analysis. I would say yes.
Right.
Stay off of Facebook with your kids. As far as opening yourself up to those kind of criticisms. Same thing with judgment from others. That'd be a good way to do that thing. Owning our own issues, getting some help, coming to see you, or going to BetterHelp or going to our website and then going to BetterHelp, talking to somebody. First time experiences are kind of hard to deal with, but you could rely on others who've been through similar situations.
Like what you're doing here, man.
Somebody else had this a kid who had this particular problem. Say, hey man, how'd you handle this when your boy went through this, or girl? Health issues the health issues may be out of our control, but there's a lot you can do there to manage those items that would cause you the hopelessness and the stress.
Learn from others.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is, you know what? A lot of this stuff is in your control.
That's right. Yeah, you don't have to ride those waves. You can steer the ship.
Yes, I love it. You learn from others, and I'm going to do it real time. I just learned from you, and you have no idea right now how I learned from you.
I don't. I'd love to hear it.
You don't. This is going to make you laugh. But when you're talking about with people that you trust, when you're exposing what you do, or you're looking not in envy at what they do, you can learn from that. So, have your little friendship groups where it's almost like a parenting group and you learn from something. You want to know what I learned from you right now?
What's that?
How to use your camera on your computer.
How do I use my camera on my computer?
Yeah, I just am observing what you do, and I'm learning all the time, and our brains are doing that. It's amazing. If you're allowing your brain to make observations about how other people manage their relationship with their kids, you can learn from that, and you're not alone. Yeah, your camera here has a nozzle, and it kind of is connected on the top, and then it's balanced, and it supports itself on the thing. I have the same kind of camera. I didn't know how to use it. I now know.
So you didn't learn from anything I just said. You learned from observing the camera on top of my computer.
Correct. My point is we're learning all the time in so many ways we have no idea. So engross yourself with your friends, people that you trust. Do not be alone in parenting. You will pick things up in things that they have successful moments with and learn from it. Don't be alone.
Yeah, I agree. And Chris and I have mentioned the mastermind a couple times on this
Yes.
particular podcast. And we've mentioned it before, but what that is I created this group about 3.5 years ago, and there's 8 of us now, and we get together every Tuesday morning, and we talk about business and life, and sometimes politics. And Chris has got something going on. I hope it's okay to say that. And
I already did.
Yeah, okay. And so he brought it to the group because he trusts the 7 other men on that call, and he got opinions and tried to learn from what they were saying and take away from that. So the point is he trusted in some confidants and put it out there and hopefully learned something from it.
Absolutely. Probably the other 6, mostly Craig. I thank you for trying, though, man.
Well, I was going to say you probably learned a lot from me and not from anybody else. But
Let's take a break, man. So on our website, through a therapist's eyes, we have BetterHelp.com as a partner. You go to our counseling tab, you hit the tab, it leads you to a survey. Really, it leads you to something that I now believe is 100% effective, which is telephonic therapy. Craig likes to make the point that you can do this out of your own home. And it's also, frankly, a way to support our show. Because when you go to Through a Therapist's Eyes and you click on the counseling tab and you go through that process, we actually get, because of our partnership with BetterHelp.com, support for the show financially. And we need that. To be honest with you, we really do. We need that support to continue bringing you the content that we had. And that's just one of many ways that we'll talk about to make sure that that gets done. So BetterHelp.com. Check them out. Through a Therapist's Eyes, counseling tab. Let's get back to the show. So let's do this really quick, Greg, and hit a little bit of what's different now, and then I want to really reserve the time to how you can feel empowered. Though we've kind of sprinkled that in here as we've gone along, kind of how to feel empowered. Okay? That article that I have on the thing, I think, did it in an interesting way, where check this out. It was a coach, I think, to answer your question before, Craig, when we began. Who wrote that article? I think it was a parenting coach. And I thought her thought was pretty cool. She said, most of us are trying to raise our kids using the same tools and techniques our parents used. And while those techniques may have worked with our generation, they're not very effective in this generation of kids. Where I would never even consider talking back to my mom, at least not while she was in the same room as me, kids today are growing up in a different culture. One where disrespect and defiance towards adults are much more accepted and often glorified in media. The line between children and adults has also become blurred, with many kids not seeing the boundary at all. Now, that was a quote, unquote. I added the word also, I think, by the way. And that's where I was kind of saying, when you were raising that, like, my kids would never say F you, Dad. Well, yeah, I don't think mine would either, but there is a lot of differences in the world today where the boundaries between, listen, you're a kid, respect your elders. Dude, I have some kids that I've interacted with. They look at me and they oh my gosh, they're actually interacting with me as peers, kinda. Dude, they're in high school. Like, I would never do that when I was a kid, right? But I see that. I come across that. I'm like, wow.
See, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's when a kid's in high school, he should be able to talk to a therapist or a doctor or whoever. I mean, respectfully. I mean, respect is one of my principles that I live by in my life. So I'm not saying disrespect. But like my kids, since they were little kids, when they would go to the doctor and the doctor would say, hey, why are you here? And I'd tell them, my ear's hurting or I've got a fever or whatever, because I wanted to teach my children to learn how to interact with adults.
Right.
So I've gone out of my way to teach them how to speak to people. So hopefully if my kids were in your office, then they would talk to you, not like a peer,
right,
but at least like you're a person, respectfully.
I think a lot of people are not taught by their parents directly because their parents don't know how to do that. Because I couldn't agree with you more. I would simply have my kids order in a restaurant for themselves.
Same here.
Right?
I do the same thing.
For themselves.
Yeah.
I want them to learn how to do that. But you know who's teaching a lot of kids? YouTubers.
See, that's a problem. That's
YouTubers.
Is that a problem with?
It's a set of problems, and it's different dynamics.
Yeah, it's who's raising your kids.
Right.
I mean, according to this coach, society's changing, but society's not always changing for the better.
Agreed.
I'll say that. So I'm not going to say, okay, well, it's just normal now. I'm going to let my kid do this or that because it's normal now.
It's
No.
what has changed and what are we combating?
I'm not going to do that.
Right,
you know?
Me neither. Really quick, what has changed in our world? I thought about it. I'm not even going to ask you, Craig, put you on the spot. Are you happy?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Right. Obviously, the fast pace we lead, there's so many quick things going on. Also, the vast amount of choices that we have to make. We've talked about that with the internet nowadays and technology. And then you'll like this to demonstrate that, let's just take baseball. How many choices do you think you've had with baseball with your son? You may not have thought about it.
Choices with baseball? What do you mean by that?
All kinds of choices. Listen to this. So, for instance, here it is. Do you join a church league? Do you join a recreation league? Do you play for your school? Do you take a local team? Or do you join a travel team? Then there's coaching. And various companies set up for services such as batting cages, seminars, camps through the year, a summer camp. There's lots of choices. And when I was a kid, I kind of remember you played in your backyard, and then you went and joined the little whatever Babe Ruth league.
Yeah, and you played.
That was it.
In the spring or summer, and that was it. Now it's year round. Like you said, there's lots more choices. You're right.
Way more.
Yeah, I get it.
Way more. That's different. And it creates anxiety. What am I supposed to do?
It's definitely different.
I'll reveal, since I'm being all revealing with my stress today, I have parent guilt also. You know why? Because we did the church leagues, we did some recreational stuff. I really engaged my kids a lot when they were younger. Well, I kind of regret, is that a word? I mean, believe me, I'm good with all that we've done, and I think it's been fine. But if I would have dropped a lot of dimes, a lot more money, a lot more invested energy and whatnot, I think my kids could have been pretty daggum good in baseball. Particularly my older kid. He's got these long freaking fingers. He's got this long arm. It hyperextends. Dude, I think that he could have ripped pitching. I think he'd have thrown it right by Jonathan's bat and not even think about it. What do you think about that?
I think Jonathan would have put him out in the stands probably.
But my guilt is that we didn't do a lot of that, and I'm okay with that because we had, and here's a tip, okay? Make sure in all of these things that are different nowadays that you have realistic expectations for yourself, and then also make sure that your child is on board, right? So the pressure to please a parent is real, even if they don't show that. So the tip here is make sure you have realistic expectations yourself. And then make sure that really what you're engaging and what you're doing with all the choices is honestly your kids, that your kid is really driven for that, not doing it to please you.
Well, that's what I was going to just ask you that question. Did your kids say, hey, Dad, I want to play travel ball, and you said, no, it's too much money?
Yeah, not really. Yeah.
Okay, well, then you maybe were pushing. So I never pushed my kids to do anything. My son is a baseball player. He's going off to college next year to play ball. But I never,
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I never had to tell him to go outside and practice. I never had to tell him one single time to do any of that. He played baseball because he loved it, and that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I see a lot of parents who push their kids into things.
Right.
But I think you have to let the kid decide what they like to do.
They got to drive it.
Maybe you're a jocko, not a jocko, but maybe you're a jock and you played football in high school, and your kid likes to play violin.
Yep.
Hey, man, let him play violin.
Yep.
If that's what he likes.
That's right.
It's not about you, bud.
We struggle with that, and I think everyone is listening is going to agree. Like, oh, yeah, of course. I wouldn't push my agenda on the kid, but we do.
Oh, we definitely do.
We do, and we don't realize it, I think,
definitely
when that's happening.
Do. Yeah.
And I go back to one of the things we want to do in creating empoweredness, and maybe this is a good transition, it's evaluating the quality of your relationship with that young kid. And that starts way early, right when they're 3 years old. Like, what is your relationship here? How are you fostering it? Love and Logic people are all about loving the kid and honoring the kid and having compassion for the kid and having good boundaries with the kid. And I can go on, right? Like the totality of your relationship. And sometimes we're just trying to survive, Craig. Let me just get home from work. Let me just make enough money. Let me just kind of, cope with all the stuff that's around here in my life.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that, man. I think you should expose kids to lots of different things when they're younger and kind of see what sticks, Let them play t-ball. Let them play basketball. Let them play flag football. Give them some music lessons. and then see what they kind of gravitate towards, and then let them run with that.
Agreed. So let's spend the rest of the time on the segment here of how do you feel empowered? Like I said, I think we've sprinkled that in, as we've meandered around the idea of what leads to feeling helpless and hopeless. Let's combat that. And then we had a little bit on what's different nowadays, and you have to have that awareness. Now let's focus in on, well, what do you do to become empowered? How do you engage that way from a different perspective? I'll rattle off my list, Craig, and then I'll rattle off 7 things the article had actually. What are you thinking? How do you engage to build empowerment? And I'm thinking about from a coaching perspective, some of the things, if you're talking to a parent in coaching, maybe think of it from that perspective, and that's just their current struggles. If you were coaching me, and the issues, so be careful, but what would you encourage me with?
Well, there's a difference in coaching and encouraging and giving advice. I would say that as the kid grows and gets older, you have to modify the way that you parent. Like my son will be 18 in April. Yeah, he'll be 18. Yeah, 26-year-old. I can't tell them to, like, I teach the Dave Ramsey class, and it's all about not having any debt, whatever. I can't tell my 26-year-old not to go buy a car anymore, right? He's a grown man,
Right.
I can encourage him not to and tell him why I believe debt on cars is bad or not the right thing to do, but I can't do that for him. My 18-year-old or my 17-year-old will be an 18-year-old in a couple months in April of 21 if you're listening to this down the road. And there's things that he's going off to college. There's things that he's going to be a young adult. He'll be old enough to do certain things. He could buy tobacco, for example, or he could get a tattoo. And he asked me the other day something about getting a tattoo on his 18th birthday. And he
Is that right?
Yeah. He said, "Dad, can I get a tattoo?" And I'm like, "Well, bud, you'll be 18. There's not much I can do to stop you from doing that if that's what you really want to go do."
Yep.
And so you have to kind of
adjust.
You adjust as time goes on.
Allow for flexibility is what I hear.
Yeah. And you got to avoid arguments here and avoid power struggles. I think you have to talk to those kids as they get older, like young adults.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously there's boundaries. I mean, he still lives in my house. I'm still paying for his food and his car and everything else.
Right.
He can't stay out till 3 a.m. He's got to be home at 11 or whatever. I tell him he has to be home. But you do have to begin to give some leeway and let them start becoming adults as they get older. Same thing with younger kids. You treat your 5-year-old different than your 10-year-old or your 12-year-old. You may have more control over those kids at that age, obviously. But I think it does shift, and you have to be able to manage that.
It is an issue of control, isn't it? Yeah, flexibility, I hear in that. I also hear allow yourself to not necessarily have the answers. That's one of the things that my brain let off with what you're thinking about. Go get help and get answers with friends and people that you trust, such as the mastermind group or people that care. And the issues of control, flexibly moving and changing. Thirdly, I hear you saying, so that you have a way more control. See, listen, the people get freaked out about control. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can't, but the wisdom to know the difference. That's a powerful thing that I quote a lot of times, and people freak out about control. And you think about it. A parenting relationship is dynamic and is the only type of relationship that I can think of, and I've thought about this doing what I do, that you're actually supposed to have kind of control over another human being. Right?
Yeah, you do.
You don't have that with any other kind of relationship.
Yeah.
With any other human. And the power of control, treated humbly, boy, that's what the awesome responsibility of being a parent is, right? Changes from almost complete control when they're a newborn. I mean, you control whether they're on their back or on their belly.
Yeah.
All the way to, son, you're 18 and you get a tattoo. I can't control that. It's your decision. That process of transformation dynamically over, in our society at least, 18 years is a booger. I mean, it trips people up.
Yeah.
With how much you can control and what you need to let go of. And there's number 5, the ability to let go. probably is another thing that will help you to feel, empowered. It's empowering actually to let go of stuff.
Well,
that's
your job to let go. Your job as a parent is to raise that kid so that he or she becomes an adult and is a contributor to society in some form or fashion.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate goal. So even though you're controlling this person's actions, hopefully less as they grow older.
Right.
But the ultimate goal is to create somebody who's going to leave your house and go out and be a contributor to society, have a job, pay taxes, could give back to their community in some form or fashion, raise their own kids.
As a healthy of a young person that you can rear.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what parenting is all about. It's an awesome ride, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's an awesome ride.
It definitely is.
And I use the word awesome to interpret any way you want to there.
Yeah. It can be interesting and fun.
It's an awesome ride. My list that I said there, avoid arguments. Love and Logic's clear about this. We've talked about that. Being able to walk away, being able to kind of just let it be. You don't have to fix the problems for your kids. I said this is often where I fail, being too talkative. I guess I'm better now. I hope I'm a little bit better now because, you got to learn when to stop. And parents sometimes have a hard time with that. So avoiding arguments, avoiding power struggles. Enemy number one to parenting is power struggles. That's my quote. I hope I created it. I don't know if I've heard that anywhere. But that's bottom line. Absolutely so. Enemy number one to parenting is power struggles. C or 3. You said I move around. Should I just say Roman numeral 3, Craig?
Yeah.
C3, Roman numeral number 3. Know who's in charge. You, period. Like, they have nothing without you. Not even toothpaste is what occurred to me this morning. Right? For goodness sakes. Like, you know what? They know this too. Actually, they know this. But they won't show you. They won't demonstrate that. They don't like admitting that. But the fact is, and I've actually had that conversation with my kids, Craig. Maybe if it sounds good, it's a moment of success that we've had. From very early on, I let them know everything you think is yours is mine and your mother's. Everything is mine and your mother's. And they hated me saying it. And that's almost now a joke, because they're older. But you know what? It's still true.
Well, maybe not.
It's still true.
Boy paid for his own car, didn't he? That's
a lot of money, yes, sir. Well, now he's above 18, but when he was 18 and I was sheltering that car in my property and whatnot, that's my car.
I might debate you on that one, but go ahead.
Actually, it's in my name, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Still, he paid the money for it.
Anyway, yeah, that's fun. Let me see, where am I at? Oh, you know what? This is a difficult one that we're not going to, we probably make into a marriage show at some point because, boy, what are we going to do about, letter E there, Craig? You see letter E?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Being on the same page with a co-parent.
Right. That's, if you are, empowering. If you're not,
yeah, that creates a whole set of problems.
Right, it can. And by the way, it's probably few people, honestly, are really on the same page. I'll make that bold statement just to give people hope out there. Like, to really be on the same page, that's hard. And I think rare. And as I process this in the moment, probably not totally desired because you do want multiple perspectives on this, right? Right? From spouse is going to have a different perspective. That's okay.
Yeah, I think they can have different perspectives, but I think they don't need to let the kids see that.
Right.
I think they need to go,
exactly.
Hey, you did what? Well, I'm going to talk to your mother about this, and I'll be back in a minute.
That's right.
Love
that statement.
Yeah.
Love that statement. So being on the same page with co-parent, which is difficult in a divorce situation, by the way.
Oh, and yeah, right. that adds a level of complexity to it too.
Right.
Yeah.
Get outside of the home. Feedback from those that you trust. You don't want to be alone with this. My mastermind group, we talked about it this past week. Their main. You know what their main message was? Do you remember what their main message was?
Control.
No. We are on the same team.
Yeah, that's true too.
Right?
Yeah.
We are on the same team. And you know what? I plan on telling those guys, I think I already did when I texted everybody. I really appreciated that. That was a really helpful thing for me to feel, right? Like, I got these people I can rely on. I can talk to.
Yeah. That's probably something that your kid doesn't think about either. We're on the same team.
What do you mean?
Because they don't think about that. Yeah. Their goal in life is to grow up, get out of school, go to college if they're going to go to college, get a job, and move out and be done with mom and dad, at least on that level.
Right.
And that's your goal too, you know,
Right.
to raise them into young adults who one day will leave the nest and be on their own.
And honestly, because of that feedback, it would not have been, but it was a part of our rather big conversation that we had yesterday.
Well, good.
Yes,
Good.
it was. I actually, as a matter of fact, remember how they talked about the three legs of the stool?
Yeah.
Remember what the 3 legs were? Well, I'm not even going to go there because that'll be a little bit more exposing of what I'm trying not to be as direct about. So never mind. Just strike that from the record. But that's okay. So avoiding responsibility for the actions. Okay. And I actually wrote that letter G. I skipped it, including the child on the team, empowering them. Thus, they feel engaged and must be, in charge of their own life. So I had that on my brainstorm. And then avoid being responsible for their actions. If you see yourself as responsible for their actions, that's tricky because legally you kind of are on the hook. But emotionally, they really have to make their own call, making their own decisions, setting their own path, letting go of what society tells you. You should be on top of that kid. You should control them. You should be in charge. And that means they don't even have a choice anymore. That ain't going to work.
No.
And it's not realistic,
No.
particularly when they're older. Yeah. So you have to be careful about that balance. And I struggled with some of that. I think you and I had a conversation about this. Was it yesterday we did? It's like kind of like, how much do you, what are the choices? There's so many choices that I can make as a parent here. What do I do? What do I not? What's too much? What's not enough?
Yeah, and in those situations, I just think you got to do the best you can and make a decision based on faith and go with it.
And faith's a big piece there. And maybe that's another takeaway that really hits me, if I could highlight a bold thing here. I believe that parents are trying to do the best they can do with what they've got to offer, period. And if you're doing that, if you're really allowing your heart to be there, examine yourself. It's a rhetorical question. It's something that you need to think about for yourself. Give yourself some peace. Give yourself some forgiveness, right? You're not going to make all the choices correct all the time. It's kind of like chess. You can have a best move, a better move, a good move, a bad move, a really bad move, and so on. Probably many gradients in between there. So if you're really to feel good about yourself, if you're really thoughtful about this out there listening as a parent, and you're feeling overwhelmed with stuff, you know what? If you can answer yes to that question, say give yourself some peace. Are you doing the best you can do with what you have to offer in life?
Yeah, and you can't do any better than that.
Right?
Yep.
And I think a lot of people really are.
Yeah, I think they are too, man.
Sometimes that leads to some pretty crazy stuff. Don't get me wrong. They consider the source, though. I've seen a lot of things. So the article, real quick, let me see, is kind of a cool thing that I wanted to pop out. I think this is a different article, so I just put it on there, kind of guide you in a little bit of research. But I liked what they said. It was now I'm questioning myself. You asked me a question about that first article, if that was a coach or not. Now I'm questioning because I think this was a coach that put this out there. The first article, I could be totally wrong. Anyway, this is from a substance abuse perspective. This is a person who coaching, with a kid who has substance abuse. But I think it was easily applied across more generalized, zones. And they said, number 1, educate yourself. Number 2, face reality. 3, exercise. 4, set boundaries. 5, get support. 6, focus on the solution. 7, forgive. And I think we actually kind of talked about several of those in our conversation.
Yeah, we did. We covered several of those.
Maybe we missed 1 or 2. Exercise. Oh, God, Craig. Listen, his shirt. I'm looking at his shirt, audience. You know what his shirt says? Do you even know?
Yeah.
You do?
Of course I do.
Go ahead. What's it say?
Burpees for breakfast.
Oh, my God. He loves to exercise, this guy. But it fits, right? If you're going to take care of yourself, are you not doing that? Self
Should
is
be.
a priority.
Yeah, that's right.
It's important.
It is.
It's absolutely important. All right, man. Let's get on out of here. It's fun to kind of, kick it with you, man.
Yeah, and if you're listening, man, it should be some encouragement if you're having trouble with the child or parenting, or you have questions about parenting. Here you got Chris, who's been doing therapy for 20, 25, 30 years, depending on which show we're talking
Come on, man.
Amazon best-selling author about a book on emotions, and he still hadn't got it all figured out. So,
Right.
it's not
Absolutely.
it's not easy. It's not easy, and I appreciate Chris bringing it to our attention and being a little vulnerable with the audience.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm glad you did that because that's the truth, guys. I mean, there's a lot out there to think about and to manage, and you have moments where you feel great, confident, and comfortable. And you have the moments, and I do too. It's like, dude, I'm the worst parent in the world. I have screwed this up. And that's okay. Forgive yourself.
That's right.
All right. Well, get us out of here, man. I don't know where we're going next. I think we might follow up with another parenting thing just because we have not done a lot of that stuff in parenting. Neil pointed out in a little while. So we may pop another parenting thing.
Okay. I'll be looking forward to that. DoItTherapistEyes.com, guys.